Okay. So there was some excitement when we mentioned spy radios last time. And Mark and I have brought some equipment. This is all Mark's collection. This is like going to the Spy Museum in Washington, D.C.
Who are you again?
My name is Mike Murphy. I'm WU2D, originally from upstate New York. Came to New England in the 80s and ended up here in New Hampshire. So you guys probably have seen me maybe in other groups, but these spy sets are here because Mark and I have worked together doing undercover surveillance electronics design for most of our career. So the desk drawer inventory that cops use to do undercover, you know, wiring up the girl, sending her into a drug bust, that kind of stuff. Not the super spooky stuff, but the everyday stuff. That's what we make. But we are also interested in the history of clandestine transmitters, receivers, and that's kind of cool, the history of it. And that's what this is about. It's a long ways away from what we actually did in our career, but it's a lot of fun to go through it. So I did an article in Electric Radio magazine probably about 6 years ago. I had just gone on a vacation with the wife, and we ended up in Lyon, France. And Lyon, France was the center of the resistance during World War II. And I ended up writing 2 articles for Electric Radio magazine, basically going into the way that these radio operators were trained in England and then sent over to France to operate these undercover radios. Now, they didn't have a great success story. Basically, there was a 25% chance that you were going to be caught, and within 3 months, usually you were burned. So I've got 4 copies of those 2 articles here, and I also sent a PDF version. But I'll just read you one little thing here. When you were sent into France, and a lot of women were sent in because it's much easier for women to hide within the population and to work in technical areas like phone operator, that kind of thing. So basically, you had a code name that you were assigned before you were sent in, and you were put into a circuit. So you have a circuit is a group of spies or resistance in France. These circuits were isolated from each other because if a circuit got burned, usually all of the people that were in that circuit would be picked up by the Abwehr or the Gestapo, and you'd be interrogated and give up the rest of the circuit. So that's just what happened. Some of these people you might have heard of, for instance, Virginia Hall, who was an American. Virginia Hall, codenamed Diane, and her circuit, she had several circuits, but her main circuit was Spruce. Basically, she survived the war. She was known as the Limping Lady, and there's several books that have been written about her. Yvonne Curmo, she had 3 code names, Annette, Fairy, and Saffron, and she was in Wheelwright, the Wheelwright circuit. She survived the war. And then Noor Khan, you might have heard of Noor Khan. She was Madeline, that was her code name, and she was shot in Dachau in September 1944. I got to see all of the pictures of these women because I was invited to the Special Forces Museum in London for one, and I got to go into this really pretty special place where they had the pictures of all the spies on the wall, along with, you know, it would say something like shot Ravensbrück, 1945, that kind of thing. So going all the way up the stairs to a bar where you were only able to be served by a spy. So you can't order your own drink. You have to be served by a real spy. And there was an older lady in there that was a World War II spy that poured a drink for me. It's pretty crazy stuff. First thing you did when you went into this building was terrorism alert, learning how to get out of the building rapidly. And it was pretty interesting for an American to be able to go into a place like that. So it was quite a privilege. So if you're interested in all of that stuff and the direction finding techniques that the Germans used in World War II, both strategically, panoramic view. We have our waterfall display. We have our panoramic. They had that. So they had that in World War II. Okay. And they were doing long distance DF to put you right on the town. They could do that. And basically you could alert the people that were in the DF cars and the overflight planes to get you maybe to the house or to the village, maybe to the block. And then they had cars that were disguised radio direction finders, some of them with wooden back ends with the radio direction finding set totally inside. Just looks like a sedan, takes you right up to the front door. And then they had on-body homing systems where you could walk right up the stairs, right to the door. This is all World War II German DF technology. You didn't stand a chance. You didn't stand a chance. They were that good at radio direction finding. There's a little bit of that goes on in that book, All the Light We Cannot See. Some of you have seen the movie, maybe they made of that. Some of that's accurate and some of it isn't. But so this is Mark. This is his stuff. And I'll let him start the slideshow. Here's the clicker.
The microphone.
So down advances.
Okay, thank you.
Get you set up.
All right. So I'm Mark, WA1QHQ. I'm in Groton, and last time I did a little presentation. I said I was a receiver addict, so I was trying to kick that habit. And I got into spy radio collecting instead, which is even worse, addiction. And it's a lot harder to find the spy radios. You really have to dig to find these things because they were never built in large quantities. And I have a fairly small collection, about half a dozen radios here that I brought. And that's pretty much my whole collection. I brought in everything I have. Bob N1DVC, who's a club member, I don't think he's here tonight, he got me started on this. We were neighbors, and we were cleaning out John Roberts' estate, and this came up. And it's a GRC 109 receiver, and Bob said, "Hey, Mark, why don't you take this? This is a spy receiver." And it's just beautiful the way it's built. And that's what got me hooked. So, of course, I needed to get the rest of the set. And believe it or not, I found all the other pieces at various radio flea markets in the area. There's the transmitter that goes with it. And let me just start from the very beginning here. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'll get you down to the details of this radio in a minute. Okay, where's the detector? Oh, I'm probably hitting the wrong thing. There you go. There we go. So we're going to start from old to new here. We're going to start from World War II. And my collection is more or less geared toward U.S.-made Cold War era HF sets. But, you know, every so often you kind of stumble into something that's interesting. There's a large group internationally of people that are building replicas of the Paraset. And that's the first thing we'll talk about here. And this was developed by MI6, and I'll just take it away if you got a good shot of it. I'll put it here for now. It's an HF set. It covers, it's got a regen receiver. It's 3 tubes. And the idea was that this was used by intelligence gathering people that were behind enemy lines, mainly in France and occupied countries during World War II. CW rig. It's just got 3 tubes in it, and when you close the lid on it, you have to take the tubes out. It's one of the drawbacks of it. It's very lightweight, compact. I think that there's a misconception that parachuters use this radio, and that's not the case. But they were dropped by parachute behind enemy lines. So output power is 3 to 5 watts CW. Uses one of those big giant crystals like you find in the BC-610. Like I said before, it's a regenerative receiver. TX is covered in 2 bands, so there's coils you switch out for the transmitter. And Mike did a beautiful job of building a replica of that. And there are a lot of hams that are doing that now. And I think Mike may be doing a video on making a replica of one of these things in the near future on his YouTube channel. Okay, I know we're short on time here, so the next thing, this was a score. Now, Mike talked about Virginia Hall, and this is the Type 3 Mark II, otherwise known as the B2 spy radio. So one-legged Virginia Hall is walking, in the streets of France, carrying one of these suitcases that weighs 28 pounds. And she has to make it look like it's light, like it's just got clothes in it. And anyway, these were the radios. This was like the Collins S line of spy radios back then. It ran some really decent power. It had a good receiver in it, crystal controlled. Ran on either AC power or 6 volts. The Paris set, you had to use an external power supply for you, like a hand crank generator, 6 volt battery. Cars all used 6 volt batteries back then. So any of the DC power on these older radios was based on 6 volt vibrator power supplies, generally speaking. So receivers, 3.1 to 15.2 megahertz. So it covered a fairly wide frequency range. Transmitter was about the same frequency range. 16 to 20 watts of output power. So the thing cranked. It could get some good range out of it. Crystal controlled on the transmitter, of course, and the receiver was continuously tuning. Okay, moving right along. You guys are free to look at this stuff afterwards and, lift them up and gaze upon them. The GRC 109, this is the workhorse of spy radios. You're more likely to find this at a radio flea market than any other radios out there. 15-year run on this as far as its use goes, maybe even longer than that. Typically used by special forces and the CIA. Both organizations use them. Used a lot in Vietnam. Used as left-behind radios. They can be buried, direct burial. There's waterproof covers that go on each one of these. So there's a transmitter right here. Receiver is right here. And this is the power supply. There's 2 different power supplies that they made for these. One was AC only, and then the bigger one, which is shown here, would run on either DC or AC power to run the radios. And let's see, very high production. Oh yeah, originally the CIA and the RDR, Radio Directive Research or something like that, it was an internal organization that worked with the CIA to develop this radio. And they made the first batch that was used mainly by the CIA, but then they switched to large-scale production when special forces started using them during Vietnam and over in Europe when they would stash them and bury them in various places for use later on. So those were made by Admiral Corporation, your Admiral, and Oklahoma Aerotronics, which I've never heard of before, but the exact number that were made is not really known. 15 watts of output power, CW, crystal controlled on the transmitter, and super heterodyne receiver. And let's see what else here. Not much else to say about this. I'm trying to move along here. Okay, the RS6 is what replaced the GRC 109 because the main complaint about this radio is it's too damn heavy. And if you pick up one of these things, you'll know exactly what I mean. So the RS6 basically does the same thing, but it's stamped steel housing on it. And even the power supply is much smaller. It'll do 6 volts, and it'll do pretty much any kind of AC voltage that you have anywhere in the world. And I also had a filter unit to kind of clean up any RF that might be leaking back on the AC line so you don't get detected. kind of a good idea. 10,000 units produced. I've heard, and I can't confirm this, that these were also used by the Air Force for radios when you get shot down. But that's really not confirmed. I've heard that you could find these on U2s, for instance. 10,000 units produced, so it's quite a few. That's all I have to say about that, other than the fact that I found this guy on eBay. George Rancourt sold it to me. You guys may know who George Rancourt is. He's Western Mass ham, pretty well known, a very big collector of spy radios. In particular, I think he's collecting Russian spy radios now. I've been talking to him a little bit about that. And he gives a talk up at the Nearfest on spy radios. I don't know if any of you guys have attended that, but he does an excellent job on that. Okay, this is one that I really, really wanted. I had seen it, and I finally found a way of getting one of them. And I had to order it from Australia. So it comes in two versions. The black version, which is the Delco 5300, and the green version, which is the Special Forces version. It's the PRC-64. Different tuning ranges depending on which one you have. The Delco is actually more useful for hams, 3 to 8 megahertz. The PRC-64 is 2.2 to 6 megahertz. These guys will do AM. Pretty much all this other stuff that we've talked about is CW only. Built-in keys, a lot of them can use burst keyers if you have to send out messages really quick. And output power 5 watts in CW, 1.5 watts in AM. It's all solid state, no more tubes. And the Australian Special Forces guys used them during the Vietnam War when they were helping out our troops over there. And a lot of them found their way after the war to Australia, and they showed up in surplus stores out there. And then, of course, hams bought them up. And there's a PRC-64 users group online. I think it's groups.io. I'm not sure which one it is. But anyway, I got onto that and bought it through that group. Was able to find someone who had an extra one. And had all the accessories. By the way, if you ever do collect these radios, try and get the accessories if you can with them. It really adds a lot to their value. The GRC 109 I wasn't able to do that with, but everything else I have here has the complete accessory kit with the spares that came with it. So that makes a big difference. Okay, the last thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to ask you to not record it, please.